Hello, my name is Dr. Craig Childress. I'm a clinical psychologist in Pasadena, California, and I specialize in working with children and families, particularly around issues of parent-child conflict, marital conflict, angry oppositional children, adolescents, things like that. Now, in this particular video series, I'm going to be addressing my comments to the children who are experiencing a particular type of family process that sometimes occurs after a divorce, in which you, the child, are extremely rejecting of a relationship with one of your parents. You want nothing to do with that parent and want to spend the entirety of your time with the other parent. Now, my guess is you're between the ages of about 12 to 17 years old, although you might be an adult now who experienced that process as a young adolescent or a child and continue to reject a relationship with one of your parents. Now, you've probably been asked to watch this video series by the rejected parent, and I really appreciate your taking the time to do this. I know it's not something you want to be doing. My guess as to your experience about how you're feeling about things is that with regard to one of your parents, who I'll call the rejected parent, you really don't like to be around them. There's something about them that you find extremely annoying. And you may not be able to quite put your finger on it. It's something about the tone of voice or the way they talk to you, or it's simply something about who they are as a person that just irritates you, that creates this tremendous sense of anger and annoyance and irritation. You just want to get away from them. And you can't really describe it to other people. It's hard to describe. And sometimes other people don't recognize it. So that, you might think that this rejected parent presents a false face to other people so that other people don't see just how bad they are, just how annoying they really can be. And yet when you're over with the other parent, who I'll call the favored parent, you don't feel this. You and the favored parent get along pretty well, and you're probably a good kid. You do well at school. Everything's fine when you're with the favored parent, and you just don't like to be with that rejected parent. It's something about them that's just really, really annoying. And so I want to talk about what's going on in this family and what are going on in the relationships. Now, I have no doubt that what you're feeling is authentic. Okay, the annoyance and irritation that you feel for that rejected parent, I'm absolutely convinced that it is a real feeling you're experiencing. The problem is the reason you're experiencing that feeling isn't the reason you think it is. Okay, and so I want to talk about what's going on here and where that feeling is coming from, where that hatred almost for that rejected parent. What's causing that feeling? Now, I know you think it's because the other parent is, insensitive to your feelings, or, has anger management problems, or is too self-centered and too selfish, or it's just something about their personality, about who they are, that's just wrong and terrible. Okay, and that's what's creating the feeling. I know that's what you think, but you're feeling that feeling of hatred and annoyance and irritation is actually coming from someplace different. And what I'm going to do in this series of videos is discuss with you and describe for you where that feeling's coming from so that we can understand what's going on with that feeling. And then at the end, in the last few segments, I'm going to be telling you what we can do about that, what you can do about that to make that feeling go away, to just simply vanish. And so I really appreciate your taking the time to go through this. Again, I know this is probably not something you want to be doing, but I appreciate it. And hopefully it'll be helpful to you. And so look forward to talking with you more about what's going on in this situation. Thanks. Hello again, Dr. Childress here. And so in this video segment, I'm going to be discussing something called the attachment system, which is at the foundation of what's going on in this family and where some of the relationships have kind of gone amiss. Now, in order to understand what's going on and to what the solution is going to be to make that feeling of hatred and frustration and annoyance just go away. In order to understand that, we're going to need to understand some more about what this attachment system is. And it's essentially a basic fundamental motivational system in the human brain. It's analogous to motivating systems for hunger or reproduction. It's a basic biological motivating system called the attachment system that developed across millions of years of evolution, involving the selective predation of children. Predators are seeking the old, the weak, and the young. So that predators, when they're coming through the grasses and sneaking up on a human little troop or community, they're not looking at the adults. They're looking at the children. Children are prey animals. And because over millions of years children have been prey animals and the selective targets of predators, a very strong motivational system developed in children and the human brain that strongly motivates children to bond to their parents. Because children who bonded to their parents received parental protection from the predator. Whereas children who bonded less strongly to the parents, well, they got eaten by the predator, and so their genes didn't get passed on in the gene pool. So over millions of years of evolution, a very strong motivational system developed that promotes children's bonding to parents. And it's not just to any adult, because if the child ran for protection to any old adult, well, that adult might not protect them. Okay? It was only a specific adult, the child's parent, the child's mother or father, who would protect the child. So the attachment system is very specific. And it's not only in humans, it developed across multiple species from the same source, a selective predation of children. So baby zebra gets close to mommy zebra. Now, the attachment system is characterized by two specific features. First, there's a possessive ownership to the relationship. So it's my mother, my father, my son, my daughter, my brother, my sister, my husband, my wife. There's a possessive ownership to the relationship that almost reaches property ownership levels. That person belongs to me, and I belong to that person. And that's the first characteristic of an attachment-mediated relationship. The second feature of an attachment-mediated relationship is a grief response when the attachment relationship is lost. So example, if your parent dies, you feel a grief response. Or if your child dies, or a brother or sister, or your husband or your wife, if they pass away, we have a grief response relative to their loss. Now, if the parent of the neighbor 2 doors down dies, we might feel sad for them, but we don't have a grief response as we do when my mother or my father or my child, my husband, my wife dies. And so the loss of an attachment-mediated relationship will naturally produce a grief response. Now, the issues that are involved in your family right now and the family relationships represent a distortion to that attachment system. Because the attachment system motivates bonding to parents, and here it is, you have this feeling that you want to escape the rejected parents. You want to flee from them and get away from them. You find them extremely annoying and don't want anything to do with them. Well, that's a very distorted kind of attachment system. That's not how the attachment system works. And what's going on here, let me, by way of analogy, talk about something that goes on with dogs. I've got a couple of dogs. I've got an Australian Shepherd and a Golden Retriever. And there's this disease or problem that happens with dogs sometimes where the intestine will twist up and get twisted in a knot. It's called bloat, so that the dog is unable to pass food through the stomach and through the intestine, and can actually kill the dog because of this twisted and knotted intestine that the dog has. Well, what's going on in this family that you're in right now is a similar process. It's a twisted and knotted attachment system that's not letting the attachment motivations achieve their desired goal. And it's a very basic and primary motivational system. It's, and again, it's analogous to the motivational systems for hunger and for reproduction. It is a fundamental motivational system in the brain to promote child bonding to parents. But in this family, your attachment system has gotten knotted and twisted up and is not fulfilling its function. And we see that in the rejection of a relationship with one of your parents. And so the family processes and relationships have become all distorted. And what I'm going to talk about in the next few segments is what that means and how that's producing the family relationships that we see in the family that you're in right now. Hello, I'm Dr. Craig Childress, a clinical psychologist in Pasadena, California. And I'm talking with you, the kid who's involved in a particular type of family relationship process where you're entirely rejecting of a relationship with one of your parents following a divorce, and you want to spend the entirety of your time with the other parent. And the reason you're doing this is because you feel this intense anger and almost hatred for the rejected parent. Something about them is really, really annoying and irritating, and you can't quite put your finger on it, but something about who they are, or the tone of voice, or something that they're doing that makes them really annoying. And when you're over with the favored parent, the one that you get along with, everything's fine. That feeling goes away and life is good. Okay. So you've been asked to watch this video series probably by the rejected parent, and I appreciate it. And I will be describing in this video series what's going on from a family perspective and from a relationship perspective, and then how to make that feeling that you're experiencing, that intense anger and hatred, how to make it go away and simply vanish. Now, in the previous segment, I talked about something called the attachment system, which is a brain-based, neurobiologically based relationship system that strongly promotes children's bonding to parents. Because children who bonded to parents received protection from predators, while children who didn't bond so strongly to parents were eaten by predators, so those genes got removed from the gene pool. So it's a very basic and fundamental system, and it creates two characteristics. First, the possessive ownership to the relationship, and then second, a grief response when that relationship is severed. Now, in this video segment, I'm going to be discussing how that relationship system, how the attachment system got a little bit twisted and knotted up. That's creating some problems in the relationships within the family. And what happened is that after the divorce, the favored parent, the one that you like, you and the favored parent created a meaning construction or a definition of the other parent, of the rejected parent, as somehow being fundamentally inadequate and bad as a parent. And the way this occurred was that when you came back from visitations with the rejected parent, who at the time you were still getting along with, but you'd come back and you'd spend time with a favored parent, that favored parent would show this sort of anxious concern as to whether or not you were okay on your visitation. Was everything okay? Did they treat you well enough? Did they get angry at you? Are you doing okay? And if you responded to the parent that, yeah, everything was great, we had a wonderful time, the favored parent would go into sort of a rejected or withdrawn state. They might just look away or just a subtle but very small sort of drop in emotional tone of just, oh, okay. Whereas if you criticized the rejected parent and you said, yeah, it was kind of boring, I didn't get along with them so well, or, yeah, we got in an argument, they asked me to, do the dishes, and we just got in a fight about it. Okay. Any sort of criticism of the rejected parent, then the favored parent would get all animated and concerned and, oh my goodness, what happened? And tell me more about it. And oh my gosh, I can't believe they get angry like that. They've always had this anger management problem. I wish they wouldn't do that. Or they just don't understand how you feel or what's going on for you. They're so insensitive. It always has to be about them. Why can't they just listen to you and show more sensitivity for you? And so the favored parent would get all riled up and criticizing and supporting your criticism of the rejected parent. Now, there may be people that you've been involved with, therapists or others, who've suggested to you that perhaps the favored parent is turning you against the rejected parent or alienating you. You might have heard that word. But you know that's not going on. The favored parent is not like bad-mouthing the other parent, not trying to convince you that the other parent is bad. You authentically feel this anger and hatred and this annoyance with the other parent. I get it. Yeah, it's a real feeling for you. So it's not that the other parent's convincing you to feel this way. You feel that. But what happened was that, or at least started, is that when you went back and criticized the rejected parent to the favored parent, they would get all animated and support you. And it appears, at least to you at the time, that the favored parent was simply being nurturing and supportive of you. It was you're the one that was criticizing. They were simply being understanding and supportive. I can't believe that they did this to you, or that they didn't listen to you, or that they're so angry and have these anger management problems. But what's really going on there underneath the surface is that the favored parent is communicating to you at a very subtle level that your criticism is accurate, that the other parent is a bad parent, that they are so fundamentally inadequate as a parent that first they need your protection, or you need protection from the favored parent, because the parenting of the rejected parent is so bad that it's almost emotionally abusive to you, or that's the definition that's gotten created. And that in getting all riled up, the favored parent communicates to you what the desired narrative is, or what the desired definition is for what's wrong with the other parent. They're very insensitive to your feelings, or they only think of themselves, or they have anger management problems, or it's just something about the way they talk and their tone of voice and who they are that's so irritating. And the favored parent might have even said to you, yeah, I know exactly what you're going through. That was a problem in our marriage, or that was a problem I lived with for so long, is they are just really annoying. And in doing that, the favored parent communicated to you that the other parent, the rejected parent, was somehow inadequate and bad as a parent. Okay? And that inadequacy and badness as a parent was harmful to you, was emotionally abusive or psychologically abusive to you. Now, in truth, I can tell you this, in truth, the rejected parent is a normal range parent. They're fine. Their parenting's fine. And if you think about it, and this is where I'm going to challenge you a little bit. If you think about it, you know that's true. You know their parenting is not all that different than the parenting you get, or that your friends receive from their parents. Parents sometimes get angry at kids. They ask them to do things that kids don't like. That's normal. Okay? That's not emotionally abusive. And in fact, if you think about it, that rejected parent is probably trying to be pretty nice to you. And they're trying to get along, and they're trying to cooperate. You're the one that's kind of angry, but you can't quite figure out why you're so angry. Okay, it's not something they're doing necessarily. It's just something about who they are, something about how they say things. You can't figure it out, but boy, are you angry with them. And so it's not that necessarily that they're really a bad parent, and if you are truthful with yourself, you kind of realize that. But I don't discount that you're really angry and that something's going on there. Now, what happens here is when you and the favored parent created or co-created this definition of the rejected parent as being fundamentally inadequate and as a bad parent who represents a danger or threat to you of emotional or psychological abuse, what you've done relative to the attachment system is defined the rejected parent as being the predator, as being the threat. They're no longer a nurturing, protective parent for you. They're a threat to you, somehow because of their inadequacy as a parent. Now, the attachment system does not motivate children to bond to the predator. In fact, it motivates children to flee the predator and bond to the nurturing, protective parent, which is exactly what we're seeing. You're motivated to flee, to completely reject and abandon the rejected parent, and to seek the nurturing, protective parent, or at least that's the way it appears, is that this parent's presenting as, I'm so concerned about you, and I understand what you're going through, and they appear to be simply nurturing and understanding of you and your distress. Okay, so they're the nurturing, understanding parent, and so you are fleeing the predator and seeking the protection of the nurturing parent. And so in the next segment, I'll talk about where that feeling comes from of the anger, that authentic feeling that you have of the anger and irritation and annoyance. Hello, Dr. Childress here. And in this video series, I'm talking with you, the child or adolescent who's involved in a particular type of family conflict following a divorce of your parents, in which you are entirely rejecting of a relationship with one of your parents who you feel is just really annoying and irritating, and you may even wind up sort of almost hating this parent, and you would like to spend the entirety of your time over with the favored parent, where you don't feel this kind of distress and anger. And been talking about sort of the origins of those feelings for you. Now, again, I don't doubt the authenticity of what you're feeling. What's the problem, though, is how you're attributing the cause. What you think is the cause, the inadequacy and fundamental failure or emotional abuse of the rejected parent, isn't accurate. Okay, they're not a bad parent. They are a normal range parent. They love you very much. Everything's okay with the parenting over there. But there's been some problems. There's been a twist or a knot in the attachment system that's producing some problems, and that's what's producing the pain and anger and frustration that you're feeling. Now, in the first segment, I talked about what the attachment system was. It's a fundamental motivational system in humans and all animals to bond to the parent in order to receive protection from predators. And in the prior segment here, I was talking about how you and the favored parent following the divorce, you were induced into offering criticisms of the rejected parent, and that these criticisms were then inflamed by the favored parent, who responded with what appeared to be nurturing support. Oh, I can't believe that they did that to you, you poor thing. You know, they're so insensitive to your feelings, and I hate when they get, like that, or they have these anger management problems. And so it appears to be support for your criticism, but actually what it does is it validates the criticism that the other parent is fundamentally bad or inadequate, and that you need protection from them because they're so bad, that their level of inadequacy achieves almost a level of emotional or psychological abuse. Now, that's not true. Okay, the other parent's fine, but this story, this definition got created. Okay, and it wasn't because the favored parent was actively bad-mouthing the other parent and trying to convince you to hate the other parent. You authentically had these feelings and this frustration and irritation, and it appears as though the other favored parent was simply being supportive or understanding of those, and I get it. Now, in this segment here, I'm going to be talking about where that anger and that hatred and irritation comes from. Now, remember, with the attachment system, there's two characteristic features of the attachment system. There's a possessive ownership to the relationship. My mother, my father, my husband, my wife, my brother, my sister, my son, my daughter. The person belongs to me, and I belong to that person. Now, this is interesting because if you'll notice, you probably are pulling back on that ownership towards the rejected parent. You may feel like, even reach the level of feeling like that parent doesn't belong to me and I don't belong to them. In some cases, kids who are involved in this process begin to identify more with a step-parent, a stepmother, a stepfather, rather than their actual mother and actual father. And so they kind of replace one with the other. Now, that's not how the attachment system works. People are not replaceable. Okay? And the attachment system is very specific. It's to my mother, my father. Now, you may think that you're rejecting of a relationship with a rejected parent because they are such a bad parent. But again, that's not how the attachment system works. Because in an authentic attachment system, children actually bond more strongly to an abusive parent than they do to a good parent. Let me run that by you again. The children bond more strongly to a bad parent than they do to a good parent. Why is that? Well, because if a parent is a bad parent and is rejecting of a child or hostile towards a child or is just mean and nasty, well, that's a very insecure parent-child relationship. That child can't trust that if a predator comes, that parent's going to protect the child. So that's a very insecure relationship, which motivates the attachment system to bond more closely to that parent in order to get parental protection from predators. And so the child will begin to do things to get attention or to act up, or may adopt the attitude of, if only I act good enough, then maybe you'll love me. If I do the right thing, then you'll love me. And so it's very tragic to see sometimes with these kids, these emotionally abused kids, who really, really want the love of the abusive parent. I used to work in the foster care system, and I saw that a lot, where the abused children, and these were bad parents, are in the foster care system, that these children still wanted that relationship and desperately wanted that relationship from an abusive parent, from a bad parent. So you're not rejecting the rejected parent because they're a bad parent. Okay, that doesn't happen. Children do not reject parents. Children who rejected parents were eaten by predators. That doesn't happen. There's something else going on here that's creating that hostility, that anger. Now, if you remember, the second feature of an attachment-mediated relationship is a grief response when it's severed. That when we lose an attachment-mediated relationship, we feel this tremendous grief. It's extremely painful. You'll see at funerals people sobbing and sobbing over the loss of a husband or a parent or a child. Very painful. Now, in your situation, after the divorce, you and the favored parent kind of co-created this meaning or co-created this definition of the rejected parent as being fundamentally inadequate and as representing a threat or danger to you, a danger of sort of emotional or psychological abuse. And what that did was suppress the functioning of the attachment system so that you no longer felt the need to bond or the motivation to bond to the rejected parent, because children don't bond to predators. And that's how you were defining that parent, as the threat or the danger. And instead they're motivated to flee the predator and bond to the protected parent, which is kind of what you're doing. But now, even though the attachment system on the surface is being suppressed, underneath it's still working. Okay? The attachment system doesn't go away. It evolved across millions of years of evolution. Baby zebra gets close to mommy zebra. So the attachment system is still working, it's still operative, and it's still motivating you to bond to the rejected parent. And so you have this brain system, a fundamental motivational system, the attachment system, that's motivating you strongly to bond to the rejected parent. But you're not. They're the predator. They're the threat. And so you're fleeing from them. That's the disruption to the attachment system that's causing a grief response. What you're experiencing, the pain and the anger and the frustration, is a grief response because your attachment system isn't fulfilling its job. You're not allowing it to fulfill itself and to complete its bonding to the rejected parent. And so you're experiencing a grief response relative to that parent. Now, one of the things you may think that is evidence that this parent, the rejected parent, is actually a bad parent and is causing this, is that every time you're with that parent, every time you're with the rejected parent, it hurts more. It's more frustrating. You feel all this distress and anger. Whereas when you're back with the favored parent, you don't feel that. Well, it must be something about the rejected parent, right? Because when you're with them, you feel it, and when you're not with them, you don't. And so it must be something they're doing that's causing this. That's not true. What it is the attachment system. When you're with the rejected parent, the attachment system says, oh, good, you're here, and motivates you more strongly to bond to that parent. But because you're not bonding with that parent, you have a bigger grief response, which hurts more, which then makes you angry and frustrated and irritable and because you're not bonding with that parent. Hello, Dr. Childress here. Again, I appreciate your taking the time and having the patience to listen to these video segments here. I know it's probably not by your choice, but you're doing it as a favor to the parent that you don't like, the rejected parent, and I appreciate you taking the time. Now, so far I've discussed the attachment system, what it is, and motivates children to bond to parents in order to receive parental protection from predators. I've talked about how after the divorce, you and the favored parent sort of co-created this definition of the rejected parent as being fundamentally inadequate and bad as a parent, and that this process, and I'm not saying that you don't feel the anger, you don't feel the frustration, and so you authentically feel this anger, this irritation, this annoyance with the other parent, but it's getting inflamed by the validation of the favored parent, and also the definitions of why the rejected parent is a bad parent are being sort of co-created, that they have anger management problems, or they're just not sensitive enough to you, or that they're too selfish and self-centered, it always has to be their way, things like that. Or it's just something about their personality. Then in the last segment, I talked about the grief response, how the attachment system is seeking to fulfill itself with the rejected parent, and because it's not being allowed to fulfill itself, you're experiencing this tremendous grief response out of the attachment system, whether you like it or not, it's just happening. And it's this feeling that's producing your distress. It's actually a grief response. And that's why you cannot put your finger on what it is about the rejected parent that's producing your annoyance. If you authentically think about it, it's not really about something they say or do. They're probably being pretty nice or trying to be pretty nice. And if you think about your friends and your friends' parents, your rejected parent is pretty normal range. They're not doing something that's way outside normal range. In addition, even if they were a bad parent, your attachment system would motivate you to bond more strongly to them. The attachment system motivates children to bond more strongly to bad parents than to good parents. Children don't reject parents. The children who rejected parents got eaten by predators. So what's happening here is you and the favored parent have defined the rejected parent as being fundamentally inadequate and as a bad, almost emotionally or psychologically abusive parent, which then defines them as the predator, so that your attachment system motivates you to flee the predator, the rejected parent, and bond to the supposedly nurturing parent in this case. But the problem is the attachment system under the surface continues to operate, continues to motivate you, strongly motivate you to bond to the rejected parent, and thereby produces this intense grief response. Now, where does the angry come from? Well, angry as an emotion has 3 levels to it. The top 2 levels are, you hurt me, so I hurt you, with angry being the I hurt you part, but underneath that is the you hurt me part. The 3rd level down is, the reason you hurt me is because I care about you, I love you, but you don't love me. Ow, that hurts, and now I'm angry. And so those are the 3 levels of angry. And what you're experiencing is, from the grief response, is a tremendous sense of sadness and hurt. But you can't put your finger on what's causing the hurt. But it has something to do with the rejected parent. Something about them is causing your hurt. Well, yeah, it's the grief response from your desire to bond, the unfulfilled desire to bond with them. But because they hurt you, well, you hurt me, I hurt you. So now you're angry back at them because you think they don't love you. Oh, no, that's not true at all. They love you very much. They want to bond with you. They're absolutely a fine, normal range, protective, loving parent. But it's this false creation of a definition that they're somehow bad and abusive and don't love you and don't care about you that's causing you the pain. And the unfulfilled attachment system that causes the grief response. And that's what's producing the anger. You hurt me, so I hurt you. But it's not really something they're doing. So it is about who they are. It's just simply who they are. Their presence motivates your attachment system toward bonding. And because you're not bonding, there comes the pain and the hurt. So you're right in that. It's not something that they're doing. It's something of who they are. But it's not because they're bad or a problem in what they're doing. Now, if you think about the grief response too, the grief response typically shows up when a parent or a child or a spouse dies. But think about what's going on in this situation. You want to entirely reject a relationship with your mom or your dad, one of your parents, the rejected parent. And you essentially want to spend all of your time and have the full relationship with the favored parent, which is essentially killing one of your parents. One of your parents is dead to you. That's consistent with the grief response. What you're trying to do is metabolize and resolve a grief response by killing one of your parents. So whereas in the normal range kind of circumstances, a parent will die and then the child experiences the grief, in this situation, it's backwards. You're experiencing a grief response and therefore trying to kill your parent in order to resolve that grief response so that you don't have to experience or feel it anymore. But that's really a problem because your parent is still here and they still love you very much and you still love them and have the ability to bond with them. And so it's extremely tragic if you have to wind up killing a parent in order to manage a grief response that shouldn't be there. Your parent, the rejected parent, is not a bad parent. Okay, they love you. They're normal range. They probably have their idiosyncrasies, but they're not a bad parent. They love you. They care about you. And you don't have to lose a relationship with them. There's ways to solve it. And in the next video segment, I'll talk about those. Hello, Dr. Childress here. Again, thank you for putting up with me and going through these video segments with me. I appreciate it. Now, in these video segments, I've been describing for you where that feeling of angry and hatred towards the rejected parent is coming from, that it's not coming from where you think it is or where you thought it was, which is that the rejected parent is somehow a bad parent and is their fundamental inadequacy as a parent is somehow creating this difficulty. It's emotionally or psychologically abusive to you. And that when you've created this definition, that's received support from the favored parent, that they've actually absolutely supported that definition. Oh, I get it. I understand how that other parent was. I had to live with them. Oh, I can't believe that they're get so angry with you, or that they don't understand you or don't listen to you. They don't need to yell at you. All they have to do is ask you. And I can't believe that they spend so much time with that other step parent. They should be spending time with you when you're over. All those sorts of inflammatory kinds of support, quote unquote, for your criticism that leads to this definition of the other parent as being a bad and emotionally, psychologically abusive parent, which they're not. But it interferes with your ability to complete the motivation of your attachment system for bonding, that then results in a grief response that creates an authentic feeling of pain for you. So your pain, your irritation, your annoyance is authentic. It's just the attribution of causality that's the problem. Now, there's a couple of little things you can do to test this, to see if I'm accurate in this. One is small and one is kind of big. Okay, so let's start with the small one. The small one is to look at how you and the favored parent have co-created this definition of the targeted parent as being a bad parent. And so when you return from visitations with the rejected parent and you're with the favored parent again, watch how they ask you about how things went, and they show this concern of, was everything okay? Did you get along okay? And did they treat you well? And what I'm going to suggest is that you try a little experiment here. Start by offering them a positive about the rejected parent. By saying, oh yeah, things were great. Things were wonderful. I had a great time. And watch the reaction of the favored parent. Okay, what they will most likely kind of look a little crestfallen or kind of get a little dejected and pull away. Oh, okay. And you'll see them pull away, and it's very subtle, but there'll be a subtle dropping in their emotional tone, a little disappointment. And then offer up a criticism of the rejected parent. Well, it wasn't that great, actually. It was actually kind of boring, and I just don't like being over there. They're just really annoying and irritating. And then watch the reaction of the favored parent. They will become alive. They will go, oh my goodness, what happened? Tell me more about it. Oh, I can't believe that they did that to you. Oh, you poor thing. And I wish they wouldn't do that. And I wish they wouldn't get so angry or would spend more time with you or, find things that would interest you better, and they just don't get it. Okay. And so you'll watch how the favored parent sort of suppresses any positive feelings you have towards the rejected parent, but also inflames any criticism that you have towards that rejected parent. Because that's how this false definition of the rejected parent as being somehow bad, that's how it got created. Now, once it kind of gets created, though, you have an authentic feeling of anger and distress relative to that parent. So it's not like they're producing those feelings for you. You're saying, no, these are my real feelings. I don't like being with that parent. I get it, totally understandable. But it's not because that parent's a bad parent, it's because of the grief response, because you're not fulfilling the motivations that are emerging from the attachment system. So the second thing you can do to test whether or not this is accurate, and here's the big thing, is to complete the attachment system's motivation for bonding. In other words, what I'd like to suggest you try here for about 6 weeks maybe. 6 weeks is a nice, good, healthy period of time to try it. But my guess is if the moment you start it within a few days, you're going to see a major difference, is to go ahead and bond with the rejected parent. Complete the attachment system motivation. So when you're with the rejected parent, smile, laugh, hug, give affection and receive affection. Be normal. Laugh with them, hold them, be nice, and accept their niceness in return. If you care about them, and if you show you care and get those hugs and receive those hugs and let them love you, what you're going to find is that anger and that distress and that frustration and annoyance and irritation and all those nasty, ugly feelings vanish into thin air. They just completely disappear because they were never authentic to the actual activity of the rejected parent. They are a grief response to your inability to bond with them. So the moment you allow the bonding, the attachment system to complete itself, those feelings will disappear. And so if you do that over the course of a few weeks, you're going to find that you no longer have those problems, that everything's okay. And so those are two ways to actually test whether or not what I'm saying is true. And I would strongly encourage you to try that second test. Give it a try. See what happens. Okay? Don't believe me. Give it a try. And you will find that what I'm telling you is true. The rejected parent, the parent you're currently rejecting, loves you very much. They're a fine, wonderful, normal range parent. Oh yeah, they're a little annoying and irritating at times, but that's normal range. Okay, all your friends have annoying parents, and you know what? You can be annoying sometimes too. That's just a way of relationships. But there's nothing bad. There's no reason for hatred and that intense anger and animosity. In the next video segment, I'll be discussing what to do though with the favored parent. Because the favored parent is not going to want that bonded relationship with the currently rejected parent. They're not going to like that. And so what can you do about that relationship? Hello, Dr. Craig Childress here. Now, so far I've described the attachment system and how it's motivating you for bonding to the rejected parent, how you've created this definition of the rejected parent as being a threat or danger or emotionally abusive that suppresses the completion of the attachment system, that then thereby produces this grief response in you, in the attachment system, and that you're misattributing the cause of the pain and frustration with the rejected parent as being something that they're doing, when actually it's not. It's a normal range grief response from your inability to bond with them. So that if you simply restore the relationship bond, if you simply allow the attachment system to fulfill itself, then that distress you feel is actually going to go away. It's just going to vanish. And give it a try. Trust me, give it a try and see for yourself if that's not true. Now, one of the things I just want to add about anger here is the emotion of anger suppresses the attachment system. It suppresses both relationship systems. The other relationship system has to do with feeling what other people feel as if we were having the experience ourselves. It's the source of empathy. And so when you are in this chronic state of angry, you're actually suppressing both the attachment system. You no longer care about the rejected parent, but also the empathy system. You no longer feel what they feel. And so it allows you to do very mean and cruel things that are just not right. The problem with that, though, is for you that you're a good person. You're a good kid. You're a good human being. I know that. I've talked with a number of kids in these situations. You're a good person. And you don't like being that mean. That's not who you are. And so you have to make the rejected parent into this monster, into somebody who deserves this treatment, deserves to be rejected, in order for you to keep that anger going, and in order for you to be as mean and as cruel as you are being. That's not right. Stop it. Okay? Nobody deserves that level of cruelty. The parent you're rejecting loves you very much. You are the world to them. All they want is a normal range relationship with you. Not too much to ask, and it's something you can do. But I know the feeling gets in the way, that anger, that animosity, the hatred. But it's coming from a grief response. If you just simply bond to them, allow yourself to be happy, allow yourself to enjoy them, to love them, and to receive their love, that feeling will go away. It will simply vanish. But now, the favored parent won't want that. Because the favored parent, after the divorce, feels really insecure and is worried that if you love the rejected parent, you're going to leave them. You're going to leave the favored parent. You're not going to love them. Well, that's not true. The attachment system motivates us to love both parents. And so that's nonsense. But they have that fear that if you love the rejected parent, you won't love them. Well, that's silly. And so you can go ahead and continue to love the favored parent as well. That's fine. But they're going to have trouble accepting that you love the rejected parent. They like that idea that you come home and criticize the rejected parent, because then that makes the rejected parent the bad parent, the abandoned parent, the inadequate parent. Whereas the favored parent is the wonderful one, you love them, and they're the special and understanding and ideal parent. And they like that feeling. And they're not going to be willing to give that up. And I understand that. And I'm not asking you to challenge or confront them about that. You can go ahead and allow them to kind of have that belief system and feel secure in your love for them. But what I'm suggesting to you is you back off of the criticism, back off of that co-creation process that you're doing with them. And so when they ask you, how'd things go and were you okay? shrug your shoulders and go, yeah, it was all right. You don't have to go into details about it. You don't have to create, mythical kinds of conflicts. And you do it. You did something wrong, and the rejected parent got angry with you. But when you talk to the favored parent, you present as if you are the innocent victim, and you know better than that. You provoked something over there, but you know that the favored parent likes that presentation of you're the innocent victim and how terrible the other parent is. But I'm asking you to sort of stop that game. But you don't have to go completely the other way. You can just kind of shrug your shoulders and give them vague answers. And I don't know. I don't know is a great response for kind of blowing people off. I don't know. It is all right. It's okay. And then just walk away and go somewhere. The other thing, some favored parents won't accept that. They will continue to try to elicit the criticisms from you. And for some kids in this situation, what happens is that the rejected parent, they're a nice parent. You love them. You know that. And they're being nice to you, and you really care about them and love them so much. But when you're over with the favored parent, you have to criticize them. You have to go into this, they're a horrible parent, and they're a mean parent, and yes, they are, and you inflame. And it makes you feel really guilty because you feel like you're betraying the rejected parent, the beloved parent. And you're betraying them by saying all these mean, nasty things and by not standing up for them and not defending them. And so it's that guilt that then makes you feel so bad that you have to make them into the bad parent. They must be the bad parent because otherwise I'm going to feel really bad about betraying them, and I'm going to feel really guilty. You don't have to do that. Okay, I know, and the rejected parent knows what you're putting up with regard to the favored parent, and how important it is to the favored parent that you play this game, that don't love the rejected parent. And so how they try to get you to do that and try to get you to criticize them and reject them. And so if you have to do that, it's kind of like being a prisoner of war in a war situation, and the terrorists are making you say anti-American statements. Don't worry about it. Okay, we know you're patriotic. We know you're good. Okay, and you're just doing that because that's the situation you have to survive in. Got it. Understand that. Don't worry about it. No need to feel guilty. No need to feel like you're betraying if that's what you need to do. But there's no need to actually believe what you're saying either. Okay, the rejected parent, the one you're currently rejecting and hopefully will stop, that parent is a fine parent. They're normal range. They love you very much. They're okay. And it's okay to have a relationship with them. So when you're over with them, don't worry about it. Just have a good relationship. Just love them, get hugs, give hugs, laugh, jump, smile, have joy. And then if you need to go back and create some sort of critical story with the favorite parent, go ahead. That's not a problem. Okay. And that's how you can survive in these two different worlds without getting yourself all distorted and knotted up. Okay. Because again, if you remember what I talked about with the dogs and the bloat, where the intestine gets twisted and knotted and the dogs can die from that, the thing we want to avoid is the twisting and knotting to your attachment system that wants to bond with both parents. So allow yourself to bond to both parents. And this becomes really important for your development and for your future relationships, because this attachment system mediates all close bonded relationships, including your spousal relationship to your own husband and your wife, or to your relationship with your children. And so if your attachment system gets all knotted up somehow, and so you're not able to express love towards one or the other parent and receive love from both parents, then that's going to twist up and knot up your relationship with your spouse. And so you're going to have marital problems, and with your own kids. And so there's going to be family conflicts that will continue this process. So for your own benefit, for your own well-being, it's important that you clear that system out and you allow the attachment system with both parents to fulfill itself and complete itself. Hello. Well, thank you for putting up with me through this series of videos. I appreciate it. And I know it probably wasn't by your choice. It was probably suggested to you by the parent that you don't like very much. And so I'm sure they appreciate it as well. I hope, sincerely hope, that you take this opportunity to consider and think about what I've talked about. I'm a clinical psychologist. I work with children and families. I do what I do because I want to help children. I want to help kids. I want to help you. And the twisting and knotting of the attachment system that I've described isn't healthy. It's not healthy for you, and it's not healthy for your future relationships. And I really encourage you to help in that process of unknotting it and allow the attachment system to do what it does, which is motivating you strongly to bond to both parents, even the one you're currently rejecting. And if you do that, all the bad feelings that you're currently having are simply going to go away. They're going to vanish. And you're going to find that, wow, your life returns to normal range. And all the family conflict and all the custody battles and all the distress and conflict that's been going on for years, it'll stop. Because you should have a relationship with both your parents, and all the conflict should be gone. And the conflict right now is being driven by that grief response and the pain you feel. Once that gets resolved, everything else will take care of itself, and it'll resolve itself. The other thing I would like you to consider as part of this closing of this series of videos is how the current situation is creating such cruelty in you. That's not right. And that gives you an indication of how distorted the relationship processes are and how you need to do something to fix them. Because you're not a cruel person. Nobody deserves the level of cruelty that you're inflicting upon the rejected parent. They love you. They care about you. It doesn't take that much from you to be kind, to be nice, to be gentle. But you are essentially killing them in your life. You want nothing to do with them. You don't want them to come to your music recitals or your soccer games or your graduation ceremonies. You want them to be gone from the planet. You are essentially killing them to you, and you are essentially killing their child. They used to have a child, a son or a daughter. They don't have that child anymore because you are killing that child. That is horribly, horribly cruel. I ask you to consider that, and I ask you to stop it. Nobody deserves that. You have the capacity to bring great joy and love and happiness to them. Now, I kind of have two related philosophies. The first is that the problem with the world is that there's too much suffering. And so any chance we have to remove suffering, we should take it. And instead, in this situation, you are adding suffering to the world. Oh, stop it. There's no need for that. It's basic social skills. Please, thank you. Be nice. Be kind. Okay, that's all I'm asking. They love you very, very much. All parents love their kids. And so let them love you. Smile. Give hugs. Bring joy and happiness to the world, which is the second philosophy that I maintain, which is the problem with the world is that there's too little happiness. And so any opportunity we have to bring joy and happiness to the world, we should take it. And you have a tremendous opportunity to bring joy and happiness to the parent that you're currently rejecting. And the idea that you are killing them to you makes me sad. Because all children love their parents, and you should have both parents in your lives. And the idea that you are killing their child to them, it makes me incredibly sad. Because no one deserves to have their child killed. I don't care for what reason. It's just not acceptable. It's not right. And you know it's not right. And you have to inflame this anger and this hatred because it's so hard for you to be that cruel. I know. And so I'm asking you to stop it. Stop being cruel. Come back to being a normal range. Come back to a life where you don't have to worry about all this conflict. And the way to do that is to allow the attachment system to fulfill itself with both parents. With the favored parent, love them, enjoy them, be with them, great. With the parent who's currently being rejected, love them, laugh with them, hold them, give them affection. It's great. Well, thank you, and take care.